the goals for this series is to help you level up as an artist by giving you pragmatic tips on how to make better art for your game and to highlight the weak points in your art so that you'll be able to improve and grow. If you follow along and listen to the tips I'm giving, I can guarantee you'll improve and become better. But I will warn you, none of what I'm presenting is easy. It's an uncomfortable process and it can be painful, even excruciating at times. But hopefully with any luck, that discomfort will dwarf in comparison to the satisfaction of making art that will sell your game. Your art might be at level 0. Most of us are not professional artists. And so it's okay to be at any level as far as your art goes. But I want to give you some honest truths. No matter where you're starting at, within a short month or two, you could be making professional level artwork. You could literally have art that will sell your game. I'm not exaggerating. Main thing that is currently standing between you and the art you want is just a massive amount of discomfort and a little bit of time. If you're willing to sacrifice those two things, your comfort and your time, you're going to make astounding progress. If you follow the process, your art can be one of the biggest strengths of your game dev career. I started professionally drawing in 2021, around the beginning of COVID, when I landed my first job. Since then, I've been working on a variety of projects and learning game dev as a part-time hobby. One of my goals for the channel is to help game devs tackle some of the most difficult parts of the game dev pipeline, and specifically how to create good art for your games that will clearly communicate to the player, and also art that will help sell your game. All right, let me get into a little bit of a tangent. So art is not the most important part of a game. I'll be the first one to say that. Art in particular has it's a necessity for a couple of reasons that I'll get into in a moment. But first and foremost, I just want to clarify that gameplay is the most important. Game design is the most important. Making a good game that has replayability, that's fun, that captivates people through storytelling or through presenting a series of fun challenges for people to tackle. And art is sort of irrelevant to a lot of that, to be honest. But one of the reasons to focus on art in your game is that if you have a Steam page and it doesn't look good, you're just not going to sell any games. You won't even get the initial attention for people to play your demo if you don't have the art that's good. And so it's not necessarily that you need amazing art. You just need art that feels cohesive and that's going to grab people's attention for long enough to get captivated by the gameplay. And that's it. You don't need anything further than that. If you're trying to make like a AAA title with absolutely gorgeous art and that's the entire selling point, then I'm not really talking to you. You probably are an artist yourself. You know what you're doing, and I'm not gonna pretend like I have advice for you. My advice is specifically for smaller studios and game devs, indie game devs, solo game devs, people who want to make art that's going to enough art to just get people's attention, right? You just want to get that initial reaction from people so that they'll click on your page, they'll look at the screenshot, they'll look at your capsule art, and they'll be like, yeah, this looks good. The goal is for the art to not be a reason that someone wouldn't play your game. That's the entire goal. You just want to have art that's good enough. And I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive as a professional artist, but to be honest, art just, like, I'm realistic about it. I'm not going to tell you art is more important than it is. Art serves a very specific purpose, and I think it's important to know that purpose. One of the other reasons, I'll just touch on this briefly, but art can be really important for storytelling. And I'm not going to say that like how beautiful your art matters for the storytelling, but the thing that's really important to notice is that the art is all about clarity and communication. The goal of art is to clearly communicate an idea from you, the creator's brain, into the audience's brain, right? So you're trying to let them know what's happening. You're trying to clearly show them what's going on. And if you're not doing that, your art's not doing its job. So clarity is definitely one of the most important principles that you're going to want to focus on. And we'll get into that. We'll get into some ways that you can really focus on that and how you want to be thinking about that as you're working on your own characters. But let's skip ahead for a minute. I want to continue with my introduction. I'm Jared. I've been working as a professional artist for about the past 5 years. I've worked on Disney Lorcana's TCG. I've worked on a couple board games. I've worked as a concept artist and thumbnail artist for Sean Duris's YouTube channel. So I kind of know what I'm talking about when I'm helping people try and grab attention for their game, because that was my entire job. I was making thumbnail art that would instantly communicate a story and help people understand, okay, this is what this video is about. Here it is. Click on me. My entire job was sort of focused on that initial 2 seconds of contact with the video. And so thumbnails are super important. It's why I think having good capsule art and having an amazing gameplay trailer is going to be so important for you on Steam. And it's one of the reasons that I'm making this channel is to help you get that knowledge, right? For you to be able to have the ability to capture someone's initial attention long enough for them to see how awesome your game is. So because this channel is targeted at small studios and solo game devs, one of my biggest priorities is just going to be to teach efficient and quick methodology to get you the results you want in a really sustainable way. The average cost of a AAA game character and how much it costs them to produce a playable main character in a AAA game, and the average cost is around $17,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time for an artist. I'm gonna show you how to get 70 to 80% of that results for about 20% of the effort, because I'm not about wasting your time. I know you're a smaller dev. You're not shooting to be the next God of War. I'm going to help you just get the art that's going to do the job that you need it to do. And I'm going to help you do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So a big part of this channel is going to be sustainability, trying to help you develop your own pipeline that works for you, that helps you create the amount of assets that you want to create and be able to make larger scoped games, because you're going to have a quicker process, a quicker turnaround time, and get better results quicker. So that's kind of my main goal here. So anyways, that's kind of what this series is about. I'm going to teach you from start to finish how to make a really good looking character. I'm not going to claim it's going to be AAA, but it's going to grab someone's attention. It's going to say, hey, this looks cool. I want to play that game because this looks awesome. So let's get into that. And this is I will preface this. I have a very specific style that I'm working in for my game. But I've done a variety of styles. I've done really gritty realism. I've done really cartoony stuff. I've done, Fortnite, the classic video game stuff, Fortnite, Hearthstone, League of Legends. That is sort of where I have a very broad sense of how to tackle style, how to learn styles, and why style isn't necessarily something that you need to focus on ever in art. And so if you're a new artist, this channel is definitely going to help you accelerate your learning. I just want to clarify, this is not to teach you the fundamentals of drawing programs. It's not to teach you the fundamentals of 3D art programs. I'm going to assume that you're going to have the intelligence to be able to just go on YouTube and search, hey, how do I use ZBrush? How do I use Procreate? How do I use Photoshop? Whatever you're using. That's not what this channel is about. I'm going to be teaching you the thought process behind the character designs, the thought process behind the art, the thought process behind the branding and the marketing. I'm going to get into the stuff that actually matters and then let you figure out the technical know-how of how to actually accomplish that. Because this is going to apply to everything. I don't want this channel to be context specific. I want this to be a broad approach for how you can tackle character design and art for your own games, whatever that game is. Some of you guys might not even be making games with characters necessarily. It might be mostly a simulation-y thing, or it's a space game or whatever, and you're just going to see vehicles and ships. I'm here to help with that too. I've done a lot of vehicle design. I've done a lot of cool cars and different things. So this is definitely not going to be specifically for any one person trying to make one game. We're going to talk about how to do it from start to finish, everything, all of it, whatever you're working on, this is going to help you. I do want to highlight that there's a couple areas that hopefully, if you're an advanced artist, hopefully I'll be able to help you with a couple things, highlight a couple areas you could focus on, specifically related to capsule art and marketability, in terms of that initial grab, right? That initial attention grab. And then I think I have a pretty good understanding of style, how to work in different styles, how to gain the ability to, switch styles, or whatever the goals of your project are. I'm gonna help you get that part of the equation figured out. Anyways, we'll get into all that as the series progresses. For now, let's just dive in. We're gonna get straight into the actual drawing process, and I'm just gonna kind of walk you through the beginning parts of this and how to start a concept. All right, guys. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk through this while it's going. I actually forgot to record while I was doing the initial drawing, so we're just going to talk it through now. All right, so this is me doing some caricatures of Vin Diesel. I really wanted to do some caricatures of Vin Diesel because I think he's got this really interesting, appealing, I don't know, there's something really cool about him. He's like an action hero, but he doesn't have like a very typically handsome face. He's got kind of big lips, kind of a weird shaped nose, and yet he's super like muscular and cool. And so, I kind of part of my goal here is to capture some of that interest. And you'll see the piece totally evolves away from this. But this was a really interesting starting point, and I think it led to some really cool stuff, I think, as you'll see. So this was the third drawing I did, and I think this was already like heading in a pretty cool direction. I liked parts of this face. I thought it had a lot of appeal. And you'll see as I go forward, some of these, they're really not that appealing. A lot of these early sketches get really ugly. So don't feel bad if as you're going through these, you're a little like, that's weird. I don't like that. That's ugly. That's totally normal. Don't feel like you need to get it perfect. This is all about experimentation. All right, so yeah, as you can see, I'm just doing some more. I had a bunch of references. I'll put them up on the screen so you guys can see them as I'm working. But I was just going through and just experimenting, trying different stuff. Something I'm really looking for in my game is sort of an Addams Family, Beetlejuice sort of like weirdness. I really like that. I like that kind of cool, like almost like horror comedy vibes. So we're gonna be trying a lot of different stuff and a lot of this stuff. This is just knowing how to do solid drawing, right? So I'm working on faces. This is the hard part of drawing, right? Anatomy, faces, communicating emotion, communicating the idea of a character through the shapes in their face, through the lines. It's very difficult. Don't get discouraged. It's a long process to get better. But that's not to say you can make you could make an awesome character like today if you just sat down. No matter where your experience is at, you just need to focus on the right things first. And for me, the right thing is what I'm doing here, the caricature, right? I'm trying to get the interest of the character. I'm trying to get the personality in here. We're not focused on here's this, like we don't even think about appeal at this stage. Appeal doesn't matter right now. You can always push more appeal into a piece as you go, but it's very hard to push more character into something as you go. And so I like starting with the weird stuff. Push it as far as you can, as weird as you can, as early as possible. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm not going to be doing a perfect job of it. That's fine. These are rough. These are ugly. Some of you might think that they're not, but I mean, I wouldn't want to post these really anywhere. Unfortunately, I want to show you guys how to do this, so we are posting it. But yeah, don't be discouraged. If you could see all the ugly drawings I've done in this type of stage, then you would not feel bad about, your own stuff. No matter what skill level you're at, I've done worse, I promise. Anyways, we've got there's some cool stuff happening in this particular face. I like sort of the angle. I tried to get the appeal from the upper left middle drawing, and I think it was working pretty well. So, okay, so this is me trying to work out the body shape. It was looking really rough at first. In fact, I think this was a big issue. This actually led to a lot of issues down the line, and I would highly recommend not doing this. Essentially what I ended up doing is, trying to work out the silhouette. Wasn't working, still isn't working. And then even here, as I start adding in these details, it's not even, the silhouette's not even working in my opinion. I don't think it's a good silhouette. It's not clearly communicating who he is or what he's doing. And so I start into the piece off of this sort of rough, yeah, it's just not great. So don't do this. Take the time, make good initial sketches so that you don't have to go back and fix them all later. You're gonna save a lot of time if you just solve this stuff to begin with. In a small phase, when it takes 3 minutes rather than just, you know, having to redraw the entire thing. So, and as you'll see later, I don't stick with the initial drawing because I didn't think it was working, and it should have been solved at this stage, but instead you know, I took a lot of time and detour to basically get something that wasn't working. So anyways, here's a little tip, cool factor in video games. We're just going to talk about that really fast. If you want something to feel really cool and more legendary, add more silhouette breaks. The silhouette breaks is entirely what makes something feel cool. So if you look at characters in like Hearthstone and World of Warcraft and League of Legends and stuff, you'll see how much detail and shapes they're pulling along the edge of the characters, because it really, really sells that video game feel, that like cool factor. The sort of perceived level of detail when you add a bunch of silhouette breaks is quite important. So yeah, experiment with that. Sometimes a lot of animated style things, Pixar, Disney characters, and different film style characters, they'll lean towards very clean silhouettes. They'll minimize the silhouette breaks. But in video games, you're almost looking to do the opposite. Depending on what you're making, you don't want to make everything feel legendary and epic, but depending on what you're making, you probably want to actually add in quite a bit of silhouette breaks just to make it more interesting. So as you can see, as I'm working on this, I actually thought this was a pretty cool direction. I think if I settled here, it could have been good. My wife was saying he looked like a pirate, but not in a good way. So I made some changes here. And this is where things really started to go downhill. I don't know what I was thinking with those like breeches coming up like that, the heart necklace, and then this is sort of the crowning achievement, the collar. And at this point I was getting feedback and everyone told me he looked like a sex worker. And I was like, well, we're definitely not trying for the gigolo thing, so maybe we should adjust. So I actually had my wife do some sketches, and that's who's drawing right here. And she's just experimenting on ways to help me make it feel more cool. And you can see a lot of what she's doing is adding silhouette breaks, right? So she's pushing the silhouette to make it feel more interesting, more details coming out of it. So I'm serious, like I'll show you some examples. Silhouette breaks can really make or break a piece, and I actually have some old art, I can see if I can find it, that really demonstrates this, because essentially I took the same character and redesigned them 3 times, and the only thing I did was just try and adjust the silhouette each time, and it just gets more and more epic as the silhouette gets more and more detailed. So hopefully I can find that and you'll see it on screen. If not, then we'll move on. So I like the idea that he had like this robot hand. So we kind of did that. Because I had that feedback of like, he looks like a gigolo, I sort of was trying to find ways to make him feel like a bit less like that. So I was like, maybe we give him some more armor. We give him, you know, some like edge breaks and stuff, some reasons that he might be shirtless. So I was thinking like, oh, the robot pieces sewn in him could be cool. And unfortunately, as I was doing all this, it just wasn't working. I didn't feel like I was making the progress I wanted to on it. So I actually, so around this stage, I just sort of was like, yeah, that's not working. Let's give him a shirt. And the shirt really helped. I think this is where I started sensing the final character coming out. Yeah, at this point, I think I was a little more happy with the direction. I think I started to get this sense of him being a swashbuckler. I like that sort of imagery. This is a fantasy game, so it's not like there's a ton of pirates in it, but I thought the idea of like pulling some of that swashbuckler quality could be cool. Yeah, and then here I was like, oh man, my game is all about horror, sort of this pseudo horror vibe, but it's done in like sort of a fantasy setting. So I was like, what if all the fantasy weapon classes were like, you know, horror inspired weapons? So I was like, chainsaw, maybe this is an alchemically powered chainsaw. Okay, cool, we're gonna go with that. So you can see I started going into this chainsaw idea. And then I remembered he's a swashbuckler. So I was like, what if it's like Captain Hook, but he's got like a chainsaw on his hand? So I thought that was really cool. I was pretty happy with the way that idea kind of came together. And yeah, I just redrew this guy from the ground up, basically, because I thought he was looking like his silhouette was too boring, too tame. When you're working with this sort of character, one of the goals for this piece is to be sort of one of the marketing characters. So I couldn't allow for like a mediocre feeling character here. So I just basically restarted. I took the good things and then I just, tried to push it into this more epic silhouette. Even broader shoulders, thinner waist. Really tried to exaggerate some of the shapes, the cool stuff. The big gauntlet feeling thing, that I thought that was interesting and gave him this nice heroic, powerful sense. And here I'm doing this interesting thing. Most people will take a sketch like where I had it and just ink over the top of it. So they'll lower the opacity of the layer and then they'll start inking. I actually just was like, I sort of like when I'm working in a sketch form and it feels very loose and like non-committal. So what I did is I actually just started making the final art on top of this sketch and cleaning up all the stuff. I was really just sculpting the line quality and stuff at this point, and I think it ended up looking really good. And I'm pretty happy with this. I've done this occasionally in the past, but normally I'll actually take it and do a full ink. But I think I might incorporate this style more in the future, where I'm sort of cleaning up a sketch and then leaving it at that. I'm not sure if I would recommend this method for people who are newer at drawing. Sometimes it can be good to just start from a completely fresh slate and draw over the top of it. Every time you draw over the top of it, you're making new decisions, you're making new design choices. So that can be really helpful. But I was sort of combining a couple steps here. And you can see me fleshing out the details of this gauntlet now. And I'm just pretty happy with the way the gauntlet hand turned out in particular. I think it's pretty rad. If you can't tell, I'm kind of a sucker for armor and cool robot hands and stuff like that. All my characters seem to have huge triceps and look like they belong in a bodybuilding competition. So, just channeling my inner 13-year-old here. Trying to design the coolest character possible. And of course, he needs as many weapons as possible too. I think right now there's just a lot of directions that his outfit is going. I think some of that could be solved in color. But there's also kind of the thought of like, okay, he's got a lot going on. Maybe we simplify a bit. I kind of have to think about that for a minute though, because I think that gauntlet is like so cool. Like the shapes are just awesome, but I do kind of feel like it needs a story reason to exist. So I guess part of the challenge at the moment is going to be like, how do we resolve that story? So this guy's backstory is that he's a bit of a maverick. Yeah, so he's supposed to be sort of like an anti-hero hero, I don't know, somewhere in that likable, cool realm. So we know that much. All right, so the direction we landed on, we know we want him to feel like a swashbuckler. We know we want him to feel like he's got a robot sort of hook arm. Well, saw blade arm. That sort of ties in with the swashbuckler because of, Captain Hook and whatnot. And obviously the sword is kind of heading in that direction as a cutlass. And then he's got these sort of, I don't know, I guess you could consider those sort of like piratey shoes. I mean, the like treads on them aren't, but that, I feel like that's more of a remnant of this world where everything is rough and sort of like rugged and dangerous, and so he needs equally rough and rugged and protective shoes and stuff in order to navigate the harsh environment. So the gauntlet's really the part that's feeling out of place, because the swashbuckler vibes I feel like are pretty clear in everything else, but I feel like the gauntlet doesn't have that story in it yet. There could be just like some color direction choices or something that sort of help with that a little bit. Worst case scenario, we just trash it. And I say worst case because I really like it, but I genuinely don't know if it's worth keeping around just because I like it. Maybe we cut it. I don't know, maybe if I slim it down so it doesn't feel like, because right now one of the issues, at least from what I'm seeing, is like it sort of feels like a tanky hand, and like because he's not a tank character, it's giving him the sense of like he's not reading very well as like a role, like what his role is in combat. I think we're just gonna do a little bit of black magic here, fix this real quick without really doing much extra work, because I'm all about simplifying. And already I think having that slimmer wrist is helping for sure. I'm not sure about that big like gauntleted arm. I have a sneaking suspicion it might be kind of tricky with animation to get that to bend. I mean, I'm okay with a little bit of clipping, to be honest. This is going to be seen from really far away, but I think we're going to be best off if we can kind of minimize that a little bit. I don't know, I'm kind of liking that though, because it feels like this sort of flared vibe, like his collar. I almost wonder if there's a way to bring a bit more of that out here instead of having these little things on the back. Maybe there's a way to bring a sort of some of that flare out. It is really, really interesting. I just like that sort of contrast, the like more sharp pointed vibes that we're getting in places. And to be honest, I mean, it's sort of a generic-y feeling thing, but it also, I think there's a reason that it's a go-to for a lot of artists, because it says cool and dangerous pretty easily without putting a ton of work in. And I think one of the nice things here too is we're just using the shapes a little bit to help reconcile the issues we're having. And then I wonder if we like taper this too. So now it almost feels like he's wearing like a royal glove or something, which I think could be a cool direction to go. I do think I still want to I want to basically get this feeling more streamlined, and then I want that back angle to feel almost like a shark fin or something. Play up that like piratey vibes, the shark pirate vibes or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think actually already that's helping. I'm sort of tempted to just like get rid of these entirely as well and turn this material into like a cloth or leather, sort of akin to the boot straps. And then, I don't know, maybe we can figure out a way to make that feel almost like cufflinks or something. Is that cool? Yeah, that's actually pretty rad. I like that because I think that's going to help tie in the boots and lower body a lot better too. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Let's do this. All right. Now we are going to just clean this up a little bit. And then I actually think that solved like 90% of the problems I was having. You could argue his hand's still too big, but like because I think we're designing him for a top-down game, I want certain features to remain really readable. So I think that like collar around his back has got to read really well. The shoulder thing's got to read really well. The saw blade on his arm's got to read really well. And then I think this gauntleted hand in particular has got to read really well. So we're gonna have to kind of like evaluate that as we move into the sculpt and stuff, because there's a chance that like a lot of this extra detail here in like the neck, this stuff right here, anything that's going to be sort of overlapped from the top down perspective, we might need to simplify it. But at least moving forward, from like a marketing perspective, I think this guy is heading in a pretty decent direction. And I like that we're basically pulling in the pirate and then we're pulling in the robot, and it seems like we've sort of abandoned most of the other things. And I actually think this necklace is helping with the swashbuckler vibe too. I'm kind of torn because this guy's backstory, so he he was not a monster, right? So he was a human. He lived in this in Shadowvale, which is the last bastion of humanity, and he lived with his wife. So in this world, in order to save lives, oftentimes these alchemists will sew body parts or augment people in order to help them stay alive. So his wife was transformed into a quote unquote monster in order to protect her life. This guy secretly harbored his wife because monsters are hunted, and so he secretly harbored his wife in his home, but they got raided by an angry mob, essentially trying to witch hunt his wife, and they ended up killing her in front of him. So part of this guy's backstory was going to be that he had this little locket from his wife. It's just sort of like his memento from her, and sort of the reason that he does things. But he's really kind of like a man out for revenge. That's sort of the vibe. That's sort of the vibe I want. I actually think this might be a kind of cool idea. We turn that heart shape, which I think the heart shape is fine. But then we're gonna actually push it into a skull. So it's like a heart skull. So that actually might be a good way to sort of integrate the pirate with the backstory and keep it feeling cohesive. This is why it's really important to go through towards the end of designs and critically evaluate, okay, what story is this telling, and am I getting the right stuff across? Because what I did, where I got really caught up, I was like, oh man, I love drawing cool hands. I love drawing cool gauntlets on hands, so let's draw a cool hand. But it's at the end of the day, that's not really solving this guy's story, right? It's just this cool hand, and it's yes, it's cool, but so what? Any AI these days can make something cool, so we're no longer just shooting for cool. We need to shoot for something higher. We need to be telling deeper stories. So that was kind of my thought process with this guy, is let's push him beyond just the generic cool. And then I think on top of that, this sort of stuff it really comes across in the end design. It's really easy to think oh yeah, you're just shooting for appeal or whatever, but at the end of the day, the thing that brings the most appeal is having this hidden sense of story and background and depth and richness to what you're working on, and the sense of personality that can only really come through that deep character work. Almost like method acting, where it's you're getting into this character's head a little bit in order to get the correct details and the correct shape language and the correct attitude and the right expression and stuff. And so I actually think this guy's coming along well. I did get another bit of feedback that I wanted to address, which is that I was told his mouth expression was reading almost right here, that he was smiling, which was giving him a weird vibe from here, because that looks like he's smiling, but the character's not necessarily a super smiley character. So what we're gonna do is just sort of, taper that mouth and then have it maybe let's see, how do we want this to go? So we could do more of just a solid line. I think that's fine. It's not nothing really crazy or dramatic about it, but I think because the character is a sort of stoic character, that something like this could be really fitting for him. The question is just, can we get the read without causing too much? We just don't really want to draw attention to it, if that's the case. I don't know, I kind of wanted the mustache to not feel like he's a super bushy mustache. I wanted it to feel like a cool mustache, sort of I don't know, a 70s high school quarterback type of cool, but not a cowboy western type of cool. So anyways, I think this is in a pretty good spot. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with where it landed, so I think we're just going to move on to the painting stuff. And then obviously, I'm going to be getting feedback at some point in this process, so I will make sure to keep you guys updated when I do get the feedback, because I kind of want to keep you guys in the loop of the process. It's really unhelpful for me to be demonstrating something and not showing the gritty, gory details of how it actually gets there, because to be honest, it's really easy to see someone's work and be oh yeah, you just see the end result and it's exciting and it's cool because it's well drawn or whatever, but you don't see all the struggles and the challenge and the disgusting parts of the process that just really make you super I get tilted. I feel frustrated about my work. I want to stop drawing this guy, I start disliking the character. All these things can happen, and I think that's totally fine. But I just think it's really important to keep that in perspective, because it's sort of like the Instagram filter. Like, everyone wants to post their pictures of themselves at their best or whatever, but no one really wants to like admit the weakness and the flaws. And so part of this is I'm going to get feedback, because feedback sucks and it hurts, but it's what absolutely will make your piece so much better, and it's going to make you so much better as a creator. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for next time. We're going to be working through the painting portion of the piece, so definitely come back for that, and please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I'd love to keep this series going, but I kind of want to make sure there's enough interest. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.